Hi! Happy Tuesday. So my name is Melanie and I have no idea if anyone's ever going to watch these lives that I'm about to do for 50 days. Granted, probably taking Sundays off. And that's okay because I am doing this as part of my speech therapy. And right now it doesn't sound like I need speech therapy, but tomorrow, 3 weeks ago, I had a freak out of the blue kind of stroke. And as part of it was a mild stroke, as in it was a full-on stroke, and a ischemic stroke. But I recognized the symptoms so quickly, and we got to the hospital so quickly that my symptoms, my repercussions are mild. I can already drive. I was cleared to drive this week, and they're reducing my blood pressure medicine, which was part of my healing process. And now I still basically have to take things easy, but push myself, and take blood thinners for for 3 months, and then probably the rest of my life is part of aspirin. So anyway, speech therapy is something, I guess I sound normal and just normal conversation, and especially when you see people for the holidays, everything repeats itself, but it's not really a challenging practice. So one of the things they've told me I need to do is to read out loud. So I thought I would share my favorite personal development book on the go with anyone who, you can buy this book, right? 50 Ways to Yay. Mine is a really old, tattered copy. My friend gave it to me. And it's 50 short chapters on topics that are, mindful growth. And so that's what I figured I would do. And by the way, hi to everyone. I'm just kind of bad about focusing on whoever is commenting. See, this is now where my speech therapy is coming out that I needed. So the first one, the day one, is titled, "Let's Change the World, Shall We?" The great poet Rumi has given us these wise words. "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." When we change, the world around us changes. When we work on being the most amazing version of ourselves, on transforming our hearts and our minds, we can let that goodness ripple out and affect the world. We all have the power to change and transform ourselves. And when we realize this truth, we can bring forth that power into every circumstance we encounter. Many of us are anxious to improve our circumstances, but we're reluctant to improve ourselves. We want the incredible life, but we don't want to do the work. We can't change the world until we're willing to change ourselves, because ultimately our view of the world is a direct reflection of how we're personally showing up in it. In any situation where we feel something is lacking, it's usually something within ourselves that is missing from the equation. Sure, it's easy to look at the world around us and blame it for all of our misfortunes, but placing the blame outside ourselves doesn't bring us any closer to actually solving the problem. Whether we're feeling a lack of love, of financial security, of intimacy, or of peace in our lives, the solution can usually be found within ourselves. If we dig deep enough, we get brutally honest and take responsibility for how we're showing up under those circumstances, we can see that external things are not to blame. Instead, it is what we're not willing to give to the situation. That reminds me about whining about the speech therapist that I saw, and I didn't think that it was good enough. So I decided to come up with my own method. I took responsibility. I used to feel a lack of intimacy in my relationships. I felt as though my partner and friends weren't opening up fully or sharing their true feelings. It wasn't until I realized that I wasn't showing up fully open, vulnerable, and willing to share that I could understand that I was the missing ingredient. When I began to shift, my reality shifted with me. I dropped my walls and began to show up as all of me, and people who weren't meant for my life gradually fell out of it, while I formed deeper relationships with those who stayed. My relationships expanded exponentially the more I revealed who I truly was, and suddenly that lack of intimacy I had once felt became a distant memory. Okay, with regards to speech therapy, that was a really good sentence. If we want to experience more love, we have to choose to be love. If we want to experience more abundance, we have to be the embodiment of that abundance. If we want to experience peace, we have to practice it first. We don't get what we want, we get what we are. So whatever it is that you feel you're lacking in life, get brutally honest with yourself and ask how you are showing up to it. We will receive and attract into our lives only what we are willing to be, and what we feel we're missing is a direct indicator of how we're not giving enough of ourselves. Each chapter has a little bit of a reflection, but for me, because I'm using this as part of my speech therapy, I probably most times will just reflect on how this relates to me or anyone else who's working on something, because this chapter specifically is applicable to me when I went to speech therapy as part of my stroke recovery, and I felt that the methods or the strategies that they were giving me were just not pushing enough. I just didn't feel sufficient. They just felt like they were going to get another copay out of me, which is $80-something for each session. So that's why I decided. Like, first, I did like a little round of complaining that I didn't get anything out of it, because that initial consultation was $202, which is fine. I mean, that's the kind of insurance I signed up for. But then I realized that I have to take responsibility, and you have to do and be what you want to be. And if I want my speech to get better, because it's my thing. My speech is my thing. Like, I super enunciate. When I write, I double check and triple check, and it drives me nuts to have typos, and I always check it back. And so right now, after the stroke, that takes a short letter takes me so much longer than it normally does. And I did go on my Facebook page. I looked at a video I did maybe a month ago before Thanksgiving, and I speak much faster. I speak faster. I'm all over the place, which is not necessarily good for presenting a video or a topic that I'm trying to talk about, because I'm probably too fast for people. But it's definitely different from now, and I stutter when I'm reading something because my brain is trying to make the connections. But that's okay. This is day 1 of my self-imposed speech therapy. And if anyone thinks like, well, you should be going to speech therapy, I did schedule an appointment for 4 weeks from last week. My neurologist said I would be fine, that I could just do what I planned to do. And also, I found a lot of strategies on Google through therapist websites, and I have a friend who is a speech pathologist. I can say that on a normal day, but she's in another state, but she would give me some strategies. And I made this follow-up appointment. First I was going to cancel it, but then I made it because I kind of want to see, for my own ego, how much I can do in this space on my own. So I don't know how many people I will be meeting who struggle with aphasia, which is what happens after something like a stroke. Some people can't even get their own name out. I know the first couple of days I could not say my boyfriend's name. I knew it, but I couldn't say it. I couldn't even say mama. I couldn't say key or door. I could just point to it and say, this thing opens the door. And that was the key. And forget saying baseball player. That was not happening. Anyway, so every day I'll just hop on live because that way it goes away and I can always just delete it. But I'll hop on and I'll read a chapter from this. But I highly recommend you get this book. I think it's in my profile. I have a link. It's a link tree, and then I want to say there's like a link that says my favorite stuff, and it takes you to my Amazon store, and I have a bunch of books on there, and this should be one of them. And it's really a great book to just get your day started. And if you just something for personal growth mindset. So yes. So anyway, thanks for hopping on, tuning in. And if you have any tips about speech therapy, feel free to message me. Bye. By the way, here we go.